Hello, and welcome to the final of our RJOS 2020 annual meeting webinar series. RJOS would like to extend a special thank you to AOFAS for allowing us to utilize their webinar platform to produce this series. For those who may not have been on our previous webinars, I'd like to run through a quick few housekeeping items before we kick off tonight's webinar. Please make sure your speakers are turned on and that the volume is turned up. For technical assistance, you can reference the Help tab at any time. If you have any technical difficulties, your best bet is to close all browsers and log back in the same way you did the first time. If you experience any buffering issues, please refresh your browser. We are recording this webinar and will provide the recording online within a week. There are also materials provided to supplement the information presented in tonight's webinar. To access these materials, click on the handout icon on the right side of your screen. You are encouraged to ask questions. Questions will be addressed during the question and answer session at the end of tonight's webinar. To send your question to the panelists, click on the question mark icon at the bottom of your navigation column. I'd now like to turn the program over tonight to Dr. Marlene DeMayo to begin.
Welcome, RJOS members, future members, and friends. This symposium would not have been possible without the software provided to us from our friends at AOFAS, and of course, Carrie Mink and Deb Mayer, who made all this happen tonight. This symposium addresses social media, which has taken on new relevance in meeting with the pandemic. Drs. Poon and Pearce have done a phenomenal job, and I know you'll enjoy and learn from this symposium. They're going to take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. DeMayo. Good evening, everyone. Dr. Pearce and I would like to welcome and thank you for joining us tonight on this fourth installment of the Ruth Jackson Orthopedic Society webinar series. Tonight, we would like to show you how social media can be harnessed as a tool for the orthopedic surgeon, regardless of whether you're in private practice or academic setting and everything in between. As an orthopedic surgeon, you have a presence on the internet. At the very least, your practice or hospital will have a website with your information for potential patients. Then there are the review sites such as Yelp, Healthgrades, and Vital that are collecting patient comments about you and your office. The internet and social media can be a place where you can broaden your reach as a physician. Instead of the 40 to 50 patients you see per day, you can potentially reach hundreds or thousands of people to share your knowledge and ideas. Social media has always been a place to share and obtain information. It can also be a place to connect with colleagues from across the world. So to start off the webinar, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Dr. Emily Sharpe. Dr. Sharpe is an assistant professor in the Department of Anesthesiology and Perioperative Medicine at Mayo Clinic College of Medicine in Rochester, Minnesota. She is the Associate Program Director of Obstetric Anesthesiology Fellowship, as well as the Education Director for Obstetric Anesthesia. Her social media credentials include being the Director of Social Media for the Mayo Clinic Department of Anesthesiology, Social Media Co-Director for Mayo Grit, Social Media Advisor for the Minnesota Society of Anesthesiologists, and Social Media Ambassador for the American Society of Anesthesiologists, Society for Obstetric Anesthesia and Perinatology, and the Anesthesia Patient Safety Foundation. Dr. Sharpe will be speaking about social media medicine, finding your professional benefit.
All right, great. Well, it's so great to be with you all today. It's a little bit different than I had pictured when I accepted this speaking opportunity. I was hoping to escape from Minnesota and come down to Florida and meet and be able to network with all of you. But here we are in this crazy COVID world that we're living in. And this is my first chance of doing a webinar. So please forgive me if I have any technical difficulties, but hopefully we've practiced this and been able to work them out. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. And as we're going to be speaking, I'm going to be talking about boosting your social media presence for professional benefit. So I have no financial disclosures to share. However, I do have to say that I was very resistant to get onto social media initially. I attended actually a Women in Anesthesia conference a couple of years ago and heard Marjorie Stiegler, who is an anesthesiologist, speak about the benefits of social media. And I heard her and I thought that was great. And then I went to a different conference a month later, and she was speaking at that conference as well, and she gave the very similar talk. I almost got up and left because I was like, oh, I've already heard this, I'm not interested. But I stayed, and she was able to convince me about the benefits of social media. And so many of you may be hesitant or to join social media, but hopefully after the three of us are able to talk tonight, that we will be able to convince you that there really are some great benefits that you are missing out on if you aren't engaging online and in social media. Today, we're going to discuss online identities and social media platforms that are available to us. We're going to discuss the risks, benefits, and best practices for professional social media use, and discuss basic social media etiquette and tips. Have you ever Googled yourself? Many people don't care to have an online presence, but whether you like it or not, you are online. However, you can take control of what Google says about you. Social media engagement can help write the script of your online identity. Social media encompasses a multitude of web-based digital and electronic platforms that are designed to enhance the creation, distribution, and collaboration of content. Now, specifically, Twitter and LinkedIn, Facebook, Doximity have really changed the landscape of healthcare for patients, clinicians, residents, and hospital systems. Social media can be an opportunity to market, promote, recruit, educate, and collaborate. Twitter is what I engage with most, and a lot of my talk going forward is really going to focus a lot on Twitter. But there are so many other platforms that can be utilized by physicians to really boost your online presence. Facebook is often has a personal use, but there are a lot of professional uses as well. Pages, such as your office or practice, can have a business page. Groups provide a forum to share interests, concerns, and resources. And I'm a part of a few kind of physician moms groups of certain specialties and interests, and as I'm sure many of you are, and it provides a great opportunity to connect. LinkedIn is a little bit more for business and more of a professional use. There's not a lot of as much personal use on LinkedIn, but it is an opportunity to also be able to share links and articles and be able to keep your CV online as well. Doximity is only for medical professionals, and one great use of Doximity is the ability to write articles and op-eds. It's a great way to keep up with research and articles that pertain to your interests. And I have always thought of Instagram really as for personal use, but as I've created a professional profile on there, I've really been able to follow other physicians on Instagram and seen the amazing things that they have done. I haven't yet really embraced Instagram, but Instagram is a great way for you to get there and to connect with patients. I gave a social media workshop at GRIT, which is a Women in Medicine conference that's held by Mayo Clinic last year. And I met this amazing orthopedic surgeon who we were there talking about Twitter, but she was showing me all the things that she was doing on Instagram. She was really very active on there and shared a lot of the things that she was doing for the sports teams that she was working with and all these amazing graphics that she was sharing. There's a lot of great opportunities out there that we just need to be able to engage and to find. A lot of physicians utilize YouTube to share videos of educational materials, tutorials, and procedures. How can you utilize YouTube in your specialty? Now, I recently added TikTok to this presentation in that it really is the fastest growing social media platform, and we need to embrace and find ways to utilize this. I've seen many physicians sharing short video tutorials on TikTok, talking and answering questions to patients. And then, of course, there's always the dancing anesthesiologists in Oregon that are kind of keeping all of us sane in these corona times. Social media is not going away, but what do people currently think about social media for professional use? We performed a survey here at Mayo of all the consultants, and at Mayo Clinic, we use the term consultant instead of attending, and residents in our department in Minnesota, Arizona, and Florida. And you can see the demographics of the people that we surveyed on this slide. We found that 80% of the respondents use social media, but only 20% utilize it for professional use. So some of the benefits of social media that our respondents talked about was that it was useful for research collaboration. A third of those who responded thought that it was could also increase the reach of their publications when they were disseminated on social media. And then 40% used social media to keep up with new research. Now, of course, there were many concerns about social media use among our consultants and residents. Some people were concerned that what they posted on their private social media account could impact their professional standing. A lot of people really were concerned about impact on time management. And some of the comments that we saw throughout the survey, many people thought that there was risk and was irrelevant to their practice. Many people were concerned about loss of privacy and wasted time. And a lot were concerned also about patients and having any sort of connections with patients online or patients being able to find them online. So why should you engage on social media? And the first thing that I wanted to address before we move any further is time. We do not have enough time. We are overscheduled. And so many people say, I just don't have time to be on Twitter. I have X, Y, Z and my family and so many other things that you're trying to balance and do with a busy schedule. I just don't have time for it. But I would have to say that you don't have the time to not be on social media. I hope these next few slides can demonstrate some of the benefits of social media for women physicians and how a small amount of time every day can contribute to growth of your professional presence. I recently gave this talk in collaboration with Dr. Marsalin. She's an infectious disease physician at University of Nebraska. And this was her slide, but I have continued to use it because even though she created the slide for the things that social media had done for her, every single one on here has actually been beneficial to me as well, including the FTE support. So I receive time from my department to run our social media account. I've been given opportunities to speak at national meetings. I've even been recruited for a couple jobs just based off the things that I post on social media. So there's a lot of great benefit that we can get from being active on social media. Twitter, so I'm going to focus a little bit more on Twitter now. And Twitter provides opportunities for research, global interaction, and lifelong learning. So leveraging Twitter can promote peer-reviewed journal articles, has been shown to increase article views on the publisher's website. Articles that are highly tweeted are up to 11 times more likely to be cited, one study found, and it also provides opportunities for research collaboration. So Ed Mariano is an anesthesiologist at Stanford, and he shared on Twitter his this table where he showed virtual collaborations with people that he's met on Twitter and the resultant publications that have come out of that. And so I thought it would be really interesting to, I haven't been on Twitter and don't have as large of a presence as Ed, but I, for this talk, wanted to put together a table of the research collaborations that I have had the opportunity to start as so because of my work on Twitter and the questions that I ask. Specifically, one time I posted an article that was done for OBGYN residents, and I was like, what does that look like in anesthesia residents? And a couple of people piped in, and all of a sudden we had a research study that was started right there. There was an anesthesiologist in London who was posting about a new research or a new tool that he had created. And I said, hey, if you ever want to try that in another population, let me know. And we just got IRB approval to test his tool in our hospital here. And so there's a lot of great opportunities that that you can put yourself out there and be able to collaborate with people outside the walls of your institution. Sometimes people almost feel like they don't have opportunities where they're at. They may not be part of, the in crowd or maybe don't have the mentorship that they want, but going to Twitter and other online platforms can provide these networks where you can find mentorship and find opportunities to meet like-minded people. Twitter is another benefit of Twitter is the ability to disseminate research. This was an interesting study done by Dr. Kelly Cowdecutt at the University of Nebraska, where they implemented a tweet chat and chose to amplify 8 research articles. After this 1-hour tweet chat, they found that the articles that they discussed had increased all-metric attention scores, increased dissemination and article downloads. And then during this tweet chat, they were able to discuss potential solutions for these issues that were related to workforce gender equity. Dr. Dan Cabrera here at Mayo Clinic published a framework that can take your online activities and social media activities and fit them into a framework for academic advancement. This is not the traditional academic advancement that we often think about, but I love that actually Dr. Spinner, who is the head of our academic advancement committee, was an author on this paper, and many other hospitals are getting on board with this. And so there are examples in this slide and the next of possible social media and online activity. And the impact that they have often has to do with the reach and the amount of people that you are either interacting with or you're managing, depending on what your online activity is. But, you know, if we're talking about, you know, for the physicians who are in academics, a lot of the things that we want to do can actually be put onto our CVs and can be, you know, you can get all the benefits personally and professionally, but then you can also have them be on your CV for when it's time to come up for promotion. Twitter also allows us to meet individuals with similar interests around the world for idea sharing. Following conferences that you can't attend by reading live tweets of attendees, you can participate in chats, journal clubs, or Q&A educational sessions. I personally am an introvert, and so going to meetings, I enjoy meeting up with my friends and people that I know, but I'm not one of those people that really is very prone to kind of going up and introducing myself to new people, and networking is just gives me kind of a little bit of anxiety to really think about. But the wonderful thing about Twitter is that it allows me to meet people before I actually meet them. And so then when I go to a conference, I can go up and say, hey, you know, I'm Emily Sharpe. We met on Twitter, and already allows for that networking to begin. At our American Society of Anesthesiologists annual meeting, we actually had tweet meetups, and every day during the conference we would meet up at a certain time, and whoever was available and free that time, we just get together and kind of, there's a hashtag met on Twitter than in real life, and we kind of did just that. So Twitter also allows for us to gauge our practice and what other people are doing out there. I was preparing a talk on labor analgesia. I'm an obstetric anesthesiologist, and I was polling the attendees at my conference what they were doing, but I really wanted to share what people around the world were doing as well. And so I was able to put polls up on Twitter to see what people were doing. Now, of course, this is as orthopedic surgeons, you probably don't care what medications people are using for labor analgesia unless you are maybe pregnant yourself. But you can utilize this to see what other people are doing for their practice. A lot of times when something new comes out or a new research study comes out, I'll often like put it out there, you know, what do you think about this technique? Or what do you think about this medication? Or who really has incorporated this? And I think this is really important for the COVID-19 era that we're living in right now. As you know, things are changing every day, and what was relevant and true yesterday is probably not going to be tomorrow. And social media has really allowed for me to connect with the most recent research, the best practices, and has allowed me to create policies for my laboring patients to determine what is going to be the safest for them and the safest for the nurses and the residents and the physicians who are caring for them. We have a WhatsApp group where we, many leaders from around the country, as part of our OB Anesthesia Society, we have this Twitter chat or this WhatsApp chat that we're able to share policies, ask questions. What are you doing about this? Now I've got to do this. And it's really allowed us to connect. And then many of the people that I follow are really sharing the most up-to-date information, and I'm trying to do the same as well to provide a great resource. The other benefit of social media in the time of COVID is there's some really great memes out there. And I love my orthopedic surgery colleagues here at Mayo, so I like to give them a hard time. But there's a lot of great COVID memes as well. So why do I have a slide in an orthopedic conference about pump and dump? Well, I think this provides a great opportunity of things that we can make a difference on social media. So one of my passions is actually perioperative lactation and trying to change the perception that women who are having surgery, that they don't have to dump their breast milk for 24 hours after anesthesia. However, this is something that is kind of really tightly held within my within the specialty of anesthesiology, and it's even in our Miller and our basic anesthesia textbooks. So I was preparing a talk a couple months ago about perioperative lactation and trying to change perceptions there, and I pulled up the brand new textbook that had just been released in January 2020. And of course, it was the exact same paragraph that had been there the edition before that and the edition before that. Nobody had even changed a single word. And so like any normal sane person would do, I went to Twitter and I ranted about how Miller had old news and was not up to date. So, of course, I guess the editor of Miller's anesthesia textbook follows me on Twitter, and so sent my tweet to the editorial staff for the textbook. I wrote one of the chapters for the textbook, and so they knew they had my email, so they were able to reach out to me and asked that I fix this. So my colleague, Dr. Dodd, and I went ahead and rewrote the paragraph. We actually tried to send a couple paragraphs to really update it, but of course the textbook was already written and we had to condense it to be the same length as what it was before. But they included it. And as I was preparing this talk, I looked it up and it has actually been changed on the website, and every subsequent textbook that is printed from here on out will have our updated guidelines that women, once they're awake, they can go ahead and breastfeed or pump and keep the milk for their child. We even have a hashtag, sleep and keep, which is kind of exciting. So anyway, one little rant on Twitter led to a textbook change, and hopefully future anesthesiologists, as they read this textbook, will remember this and implement their practice and hopefully forget that whole pump and dump. So I've talked about a lot of the benefits of social media, but there's a lot of common myths and misconceptions about it. Many people think, if we're talking about Twitter, that you can't communicate anything significant in 280 characters. But I'll tell you, that is quite interesting what you can fit into one tweet. And many people, there's a physician, Dr. Glasser, who does amazing tutorials where she does threads about, she kind of is interested in preoperative medicine. And so she does a lot of threads about this. And there's a lot of great ways to share research and educate through just 280 characters. Many people say, well, I don't know anyone on Twitter, so why bother? But I would say that's the whole reason to get on there, is to network and collaborate and meet new people. And then hopefully, I've shown that although you don't have you may not think that you have time for Twitter, really, if you just take 10 to 15 minutes a day and post, retweet, and interact with people, that's all that's really needed. Now, when I'm at a conference and a meeting, I spend way more time on Twitter than a short period of time. But a lot of times I just try to get on for 10 or 15 minutes and do that. I had a research publication come out yesterday. And so I did spend a little bit more time on Twitter last night as I was trying to tweet it out and respond to people that were posting my new article, and was trying to kind of increase engagement, which I was really excited because I didn't know, because it was released at the time of COVID, if anyone even care what medication is best to treat pain after cesarean delivery. But there was a lot of great engagement. And so I did spend a little bit more time, but it really can start with just 10 to 15 minutes a day. So when we talk about the pitfalls of social media, I want to really stress that it's not without hazards, and we do have to be careful that we never violate patient confidentiality and that we need to tweet responsible professional content. What we put on Twitter is permanent. Even if you delete it, someone will save it is saved somewhere and it is not going away. And so it's oftentimes important to think before you post. Twitter also, there is a lack of the ability to explain. There's no tone, there's no context to what you post, and that can be a disadvantage. Also, there are trolls on Twitter, and these are people who sometimes feel like they don't have anything better to do than to go ahead and just instigate heated discussion. And there are different ways that we can respond to negative tweets. We can either ignore them, we can challenge or argue, or we can apologize and resolve. And I think that it depends on the situation, what is your correct course of action. But sometimes people who are really just there to try to cause problems and instigate, ignore is sometimes the best way to handle them. So specifically, social media advancement for women. Female physicians have been vocal on social media about many aspects of their professional lives, including work-life balance. Women physicians discuss a range of issues on virtual platforms, including sensitive topics that historically would have been shared only privately. Many women physicians have always been kind of stereotyped as maybe being overly sensitive if they voice concerns that had anything that was unique to them, such as lactation rooms at medical conferences, or slow rates of performance, or lower compensation. However, social media has allowed for us to have an ability to discuss the problems that we um, that we that we have, and then also that other people can see, yes, I also am getting paid less, or I also needed a place to pump, or or I don't know how to um, balance being a mom and academic advancement, all these sorts of things, and social media provides a sounding board for that. So Dr. Shilcutt and Julie Silver wrote this great article in the New England Journal of Medicine. And I love that they talk about that these virtual communities, whether they're Facebook or Twitter, are provide women physicians coping mechanisms. They provide avenues for sharing information, and they also reduce stigma associated with sexual harassment, burnout, and workplace culture. By allowing experience to be shared and validated, perhaps lessening social isolation and feelings of loneliness or even self-blame. So I challenge you to open up the Twitter app, type in twitter.com on your browser, and get started right away. I've provided a basics handout to all of you to be able to kind of walk you through how to set up a profile, how to begin to engage, but it's worth it. I am, I've been amazed by the opportunities that I've had on Twitter and the ability I've had to network and meet people from all over the world. Some tips for improving your social media impact once you have your Twitter account: to tweet hot and or timely topics. So right now, that's probably COVID. Personal Twitter accounts foster higher engagement than organizational or business accounts. So you may have a Twitter account for, say, your department or your practice, but consider opening up a Twitter account for you. Media attachments such as links, photos, and videos increase tweet engagement by a factor of 3. And then before you have an event, you can always create buzz about the event on Twitter. I'd like to end with the rules of social media: to not fear social media, to never post when angry. There's a ability in Twitter to actually save your draft. So you can create your tweet and then you can save it. And then you can come back to it later, just like you do when you're about to send an angry email to your boss. And you save it and then come back and rewrite it the next day. The same thing about posting on social media. My chair follows me on social media, and I know that he sees most of the tweets that I put out there, and that's really helpful. One piece of advice that was given to me is that social media is a platform. And so don't say anything on social media that you wouldn't say from a platform at a medical conference. So make sure it's nothing that your chair or your mom or anybody in the audience wouldn't be opposed to. strive to be accurate. There's a lot of false news on social media, and as physicians, we really need to be the ones sharing true, accurate information. And I kind of talked about that. When in doubt about what to post, it's okay to pause. Now, some people do a great job of posting patient tutorials and vignettes and doing these education about different interesting or challenging cases. But be careful when you do that. I'm not saying not to do that, but just make sure that you don't post anything that can identify a patient. If the gender doesn't matter, switch it to the different gender. Or age, change the time frame, change the the side of the body or whatever. But really try, there's a lot of great medical education that can happen on Twitter, but make sure that you're really careful about patient identification. For me, I just have decided to never post anything about patients. That way I don't ever get in trouble that way. And then be respectful on Twitter and assume that everyone is really trying to be posting things for good. Um, there is lack of context, there is lack of tone, there is lack of ability to explain yourself. And so sometimes you may see something that someone else posts and they may not be trying to be a jerk. And maybe, assume or have kind of kind curiosity about where they're coming from. And then, I would beware of friending patients on social media. And then educate yourself. You're here, you are educating yourself about social media, but there's so many great resources that can really help you improve your time management of social media, the ways you post, and can really improve how your online identity is. Now, we are unfortunately not able to meet together, but I will be speaking at the Mayo Clinic Grit for Women in Medicine conference that will be held in Napa, hopefully, as if we can start having conferences again. And I hope to see you all there. I am available via email, or this is my Twitter handle. And honestly, a direct message on Twitter, I'm probably going to be faster to respond than through email, but please reach out to me at any point. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Sharpe, for sharing all of your fantastic insights on how social media can create professional benefits for us. I really like to see how powerful your example was of the hashtag sleep and keep and how impactful Twitter can even be on our medical textbooks and our gold standard literature and references. So we really appreciate your time tonight. Next on our agenda is Dr. Monica Payares. Dr. Payares is a pediatric orthopedic surgeon at Nicklaus Children's Hospital in Miami, Florida. She completed her training at FIU or Florida International University for undergrad, majoring with a BA in chemistry and a double minor in health service administration and biology. She went on to Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York and remained in New York at Einstein Montefiore for her residency in orthopedic surgery before going to the DuPont Hospital for Children, where she completed her fellowship in peds ortho. Since completing training, she is an assistant professor at FIU as well as volunteer faculty at University of Miami Miller School of Medicine, as well as Nova Southeastern University, contributing to medical education to the greater Miami area. She has had numerous awards ranging from scholarly work to social justice to global health awards and has had numerous publications, presentations, and lectureships. While she's extraordinarily active both here in the US and overseas, being fluent in Spanish and English, including acting as a Perry Initiative host in Miami. For tonight's focus, a specific role I'd like to highlight is that she serves the Academy as the AAOS social media ambassador and has performed in that role since 2009. Tonight, she will be speaking on what to do with negative online reviews, and we are very excited to hear her insight and tips. Dr. Payares, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for that very kind introduction. And for all the organizers for really giving us a little bit of a break and a little sense of normalcy, even though a lot of us are, first timers in this whole webinar thing. I wanted to thank also Dr. Poon for inviting me over to give this talk. Let me see if I have control now of the slides. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about something that is a little bit more challenging in terms of what your reviews are, okay? And my only disclosure you mentioned before, I am one of the social media ambassadors to the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. Actually, this was a project that started last year. So that goes to show I ended up doing this because of my activity in one of the Facebook forums, Women in Orthopedics. So to follow what Dr. Sharpe was mentioning, I think our presence online definitely helps us get other positions, and which is great. I will start with having the proper mindset for this. Okay, negative reviews are not all bad, but why are reviews so important? Okay, it's a difficult topic in the sense that we're always motivated and we want to hear good things, right? In the current world, however, this virtual and digital world, healthcare has not been immune to this customer service, business-driven approach. And in this world, word of mouth have been transformed slowly into more of the power of the online review. So why should we bother with this? Why is it important? Okay. So for consumers, online reviews and customer testimonials are extremely influential. In fact, over 90% of consumers say that their purchasing decisions are influenced by reviews. And they are, online reviews are the most authentic way for customers to share their experiences with others in the community. So for instance, if you want to buy a new pair of shoes, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go on Google and you're going to get what reviews. Are they going to fit me the proper size? Are they run low? Do they run, too wide? X, Y, or Z. So 97% of customers are going to be influenced their buying decisions based on these reviews. So online reviews do matter, especially for things that are more expensive. So us in the healthcare field, we're not immune to this. Now we're getting reviews for that. And if you want to see if there's a good decision or not, they're going to be looking for your things. And as Dr. Sharpe said, whether you want to believe it or not, you're already out there. Okay. Now, there's different things, and we'll get to more to this later on. They may not be a perfect thing as a perfect rating, okay? Some questions may be raised if everything looks great. And sometimes more is not always better. So having 1,000 reviews and they're all 5 stars, you know something has to be going on. So while online reviews can give you a very competitive advantage, they can also send potential customers or patients going the other way, okay? And then, so to help paint the picture, let's take a little bit more look at the data points, okay? So in a company, an online star rating is the #1 factor that's used by consumers to judge a business. It only takes about 6 reviews for 73% of your community to form an opinion about your business or your practice. And almost 70% of these consumers are gonna say that a positive review makes them trust a local business more than another, all right? Over half of the people that are from 18 to 34, and this is a very influenced group, are going to trust online reviews even more than opinions from friends and families, okay? So let's take a poll. What percentage of online physician reviews are positive? You said that's simmering for now. We're going to get back to it in a second. Up to 80% of physicians are reviewed on at least one website, and there's several websites. That's why it's extremely important and vital to monitor and properly manage your practices and your online reputation to ensure that it's represented adequately. And you're going to see different things that you're going to be rated on. You're going to have your overall rating. You're going to have, communication, access, facilities, what your performance is, how your staff is doing. And 95% of Americans are going to find online doctor reviews reliable. So here are a few of the websites. HealthGrades is one of the ones that are used to review doctors, dentists, and hospitals. Vitals is another one. There's also Wellness, TalkDoc, which is sort of like an open table, but for the healthcare industry. And again, the importance of looking up yourself and claiming your profile. So most of these profiles had already been made because the information is out there. Now, depending on your hospital, if you're in private practice or if you're in an academic setting, your hospital may have different policies. But work together with them and see if you can claim your profiles and get the most information, get the information updated. So for instance, I Googled myself, and in one of these, I was listed as a general surgeon. So if somebody in Miami is looking, for who is the most reliable, who's the best orthopedic surgeon or pediatric orthopedic surgeon that is in my 10-mile radius, I wouldn't come up because they have me as general surgery. Okay, so that goes to show how important it is to claim and to monitor your online presence. So again, because there's this increased level of due diligence, okay, it makes it important for us as healthcare professionals to focus on optimizing our online reputation. Surgeons and healthcare facilities should actively monitor their online presence so that they are aware what people are saying on blogs and review sites. And again, why is it important? Because more than 90% of potential patients are reading online reviews for their healthcare professionals before they're making an appointment. 72% of these patients are searching for a new doctor online as their first step, and almost 70% of them are going to say that they were influenced by those reviews. And there's different ways to monitor this. And again, there's different services that can provide you if we're brand new to that. If you work in a hospital setting, your hospital actually has departments that do this. In our institution, we use review trackers, and that is like it's a nice little setup where you can actually look at different websites and see what your overall ratings are. All right, so let's go back to that poll. So what percentage of online physician reviews are positive, meaning they're 3 stars or above? And it's pretty high, okay? So that is the good. The good is 77% of physicians are rated 3.8 stars or higher, okay? There was one study that found 50% of physicians received 5-star ratings. And these ratings may reflect your patient satisfaction. So yes, I mentioned the bad word, right? First gainies and patient satisfaction scores. A lot of us don't like them. A lot of us think they may or may not represent, but they're not going away, and we're going to get reviewed one way or another. So we just need to know what's out there, and usually these are going to follow or reflect that, okay? So we can help us improve our overall reviews, ratings, whatever you want to call them, all right? And then I'm a very positive person. I try to see the good in the bad, okay? It's not necessarily bad to have a negative review, and they will happen. The truth is nobody wants to get them, okay? But a 4-star review won't really hurt you that much. And I actually believe that some negative reviews can actually make your online reputation look more credible, right? You can't have 5 stars all the time, right? They're gonna then suspect that your review some of the reviews are fake, all right? And almost 70% of customers trust the reviews more when they see that they have good and bad ones. What's the bad thing is very few patients determine your actual composite score. So most patients are going to read those reviews, but very little patients are actually going to be writing those reviews. And again, the authenticity of those reviews may not be verified, and they are usually anonymous. And then there's the ugly. So then you're getting more personal, reviews. Dr. Smith's PA was completely rude and unprofessional. I waited for 2.5 hours. Is my time not important? I'm never going to go back there. I'll give them a 0 if I could. And then it can get really ugly. And it's the case of specific threats. So responding to significantly negative or just blatantly untruthful comments with a statement that, again, involves and explains your privacy rules and the process that you have for your institution, you may need to involve your department chair, patient relations, even legal. You should contact local enforcement immediately if the posting is a threat against your specific clinician or staff member or other individual. Again, they may take this away, so keep a hard copy of that posting. And you may also need to notify insurance companies as they may be, a possibility of a medical malpractice or other claims against that organization. And sometimes it gets so bad that, doctors actually have to fight back. The way that I like to see things, again, my mindset has to be a little bit different, is yes, we had a problem, but what really is a bad review? For me, a bad review is an opportunity. You're going to see it as an opportunity to make your patient's experience better, okay? You have to eliminate that fear of complaints because you're going to get them. But if you eliminate that fear, it's going to change the way that you respond to them and the way that you approach them. So embrace those complaints and turn the bad news to good news. So you have to understand where they're coming from. Why did this happen? Help us understand how I can make my practice better. So misunderstandings can be regarding insurance, co-pays, and other financial issues that they may have not known even before your appointment. A negative experience that happened during the first contact of when they come into that practice. You have to see how your environment is. So your front desk staff, how the physicians and the supervisors and the rest of the workers are interacting. So a toxic work environment can actually make it a lot worse. You have to see if there's any culturally or politically inappropriate language that was used during the patient interaction, and of course, wait time. So what are the do's and don'ts of responding to negative reviews on social media? Again, do not take it personally. You have to familiarize yourself with hospital policies. So for instance, in our institution, they don't want us going in there to social media and directly and responding right there. They actually have their marketing and public relations department are in charge of that. Now, they may not be monitoring because they do have a lot of physicians to monitor, but if you notice something, call them up, set up a meeting, and see how you guys can approach this together. So do respond online with, again, general hospital procedures if they're appropriate or when they're appropriate. Invite that reviewer for a call or a different channel. So have them call you, come to a visit, as long as they know that they are heard and that they can voice their concerns. And then this can result in a negative review being removed or even amended. And I found that a lot of these patients who were so angry in the beginning, you give them that time, they get a little bit more time with you, understand where you're coming from, and now they actually understand that you're taking the time to help them out. And they actually become your best advocate. So it's always good to try to voice and make sure they're heard. Encourage online reviews. The mostly good ones will likely negate the very few bad ones, okay? And respond, no matter how busy you are, respond because it's gonna affect you in the long run. What are the don'ts? Again, don't respond while angry. Don't respond immediately because these knee-jerk reactions can be unproductive and regrettable, and they stay there for a long time, maybe forever. So don't post any information about patients. Again, confidentiality is important. Don't even acknowledge that the person is a patient in your office. Now, don't ignore them. Don't ignore that criticism. Try to see the issues from the patient's viewpoint and determine if there's anything that you can do to resolve the situation. Even all that you can do is to make that person feel like he or she was heard. Don't delete the negative comments. This may be seen as an effort to cover things up, okay? And don't use generic responses. Let's say you have a bunch of great reviews and you have 3 back-to-back bad reviews, and all of them are gonna say, I'm sorry you felt that way, call us for an appointment. I'm sorry you felt that way, call us for an appointment. So they would not look like legitimate, concerning. It's more robotic, and I don't think that's the right approach, okay? The other thing is don't engage too much. Don't answer back and forth more than twice online. Invite them for an offline discussion. Switch channel. Again, remember your HIPAA regulations. There have been healthcare facilities that have been sued for patients disclosing, by patients for disclosing patient information in response to a negative online review, even if the patient posts their own healthcare details. So for instance, I was very unhappy with the surveys I received from Dr. Shirley Temple. She was very rude, implied that my symptoms were in January. The response was, hi there, I'm sorry. I thought I wasn't rude to you at the time I saw you. I thought your ankle wasn't broken, only sprained, but if you're still in severe pain, go to the nearest emergency room. Now, while this seems to be a concerned physician trying to, give them the appropriate next step, there's 2 clear HIPAA violations. So the doctor is confirming that the individual is their patient, and the doctor gives out medical details that the patient didn't even mention in the original complaint. So you have to be very careful with that. And this can happen whether you have a positive or negative review. So in these examples here, they're actually great reviews, and their response, one of them was violating HIPAA and one of them isn't. So, just a reminder of those, protected health information, your, name, email address, phone number, birth date, test result, diagnosis. So you have to be careful with that. Don't acknowledge whether the reviewer has ever seen the patient. So on that, the top one, again, very nice review, 5 stars. The response is a little bit generic, but it's still an appropriate response. Thank you so much for your review. This means so much to us. We strive to make everybody happy and feel better. All the best. Excellent. In the one below, thank you, Mr. Such and Such. So you're already acknowledging that they're one of your patients, and even farther, you're telling them what their diagnosis is and what you treated them for. So it's actually a clear HIPAA violation. So what's my approach? Okay, so we've been testing our whole lives. So this is another test. You need to know what's on your test. This is an approach that I used initially for a first gaining course, and something that I've applied now to my online course. So look to see what they're testing you on. Your thoroughness of your examination, your ability to answer questions. Are my instructions clear enough? Did I spend enough time with the patient? What's the attitude? What's the office staff doing enough? All those things are going to help you. You have to know your practice, and then that way you create more of a defensive kind of play. So yes, defense may be the right offense, as cliche as it may sound. I think it works. I think if you know what your practice are, you know what your weak points are, then you can address them even before any situations happen. So for instance, I can speak for hours, and there's particular patients that I love talking to. So if I know they're coming, I tell my MA or my admin, I'm like, listen, I know I'm going to be here for a long time. You're going to have to come and get me out in 15 minutes and, and hopefully prevent me from getting farther and farther down or behind, okay? Communicate with your patients. If you know there something happened, X-ray machine broke down, you're delayed for an hour, just communicate what's going on so they're just not sitting there just waiting and thinking you're in the back there, doing something else. The system is down, we're going to be here for 3 hours. Can we do something to reschedule you? So get them before they leave, okay? Get them before they leave, and then you have a higher chance of preventing that negative review to happen in the first place. And again, you're the captain of your ship, right? This is a team sport. So you may not know that this is happening, so have your staff communicating back and forth. If somebody's disgruntled in the front, maybe call your office manager, hey, can you take this situation? And we're gonna have to work through lunch. Can you tell patient relations, see if they can get them some crackers or something? I do work with children, so they get antsy. So I wanna make sure that we can do something to keep them comfortable and prevent all of these things from happening. You also have to know when to stop. There are those trolls, there are those people that no matter how you, facilitate things for them, how you apologize to them, they are out there because they have an agenda and it doesn't matter what you tell them. So know when to stop, and it's not you, it's them. And then moving on to patient relations, call security, whatever you need to do, you need to protect yourself and you need to protect your staff. And be proactive, not reactive, okay? So again, the importance of making sure that you and your staff are trained to deal with this kind of patients, resolve the situation during that visit. Don't let them get to that. It's more of a defensive tactic, but I think it really works. Develop those policies to deal with online complaints. Who can speak for you and your organization? So if you're following through and you see another one, see who you have to talk to in your organization to help you resolve and address those, okay? Always watch what you're saying in your rooms and hallways. You never know who's listening. All right, and then you have to, again, establish your own online profile. Make sure all the information is up to date. So in summary, one bad review is not going to destroy your reputation, okay? It is important to know what your patients are posting on social media to deal with those issues accordingly. So you have to be aware of your online presence. Address these negative reviews, so don't ignore them, all right? And it's better to be proactive rather than reactive. These are some of my reasons. It's an excellent book. And I know we're going to address our questions later. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Payares. We really appreciate your time. It's impressive how you've been able to reach out to negative reviewers strategically and even convert many of them to become some of your strongest advocates. I learned a lot through your approach and algorithm, and I'm definitely grateful for your time with that. Also, a note to our listeners, there is a handout in our handout section from Dr. Sloan, and we'll also send this out via email along with another handout that was fabulously written by our immediate past president, Dr. Mayo, covering physician review companies as well as data regarding MD reviews and how to improve them, how to keep them accurate, lots of information from Press Ganey and other companies. So that'll be posted to the website and should also be able to be emailed out in the coming days. Next up on our agenda and our final speaker for the evening is Dr. Sonya Sloan. Dr. Sloan is an orthopedic surgeon out of Houston, Texas, who is an entrepreneur, a leader, and a mentor in many, many ways. She is the founder of 2 nonprofit organizations, Me and We, which is motivating and empowering women to excel, as well as Sloan STEM Plus Arts, a faith-based diversity initiative focused on increasing the number of minority students in STEM careers. She also works internationally, developing a medical clinic in Haiti, serving over 100,000 men and women and children. Dr. Sloan is also the author of The Rules of Medicine, a medical professional's guide to success, which is an Amazon #1 bestseller. So keep a lookout for that. She was also selected as the TED Med Frontline Scholar in 2016. Dr. Sloan effortlessly integrates social media in her medical practice as well as in her mentoring and community service activities. We're super excited she could join us tonight to bring us a private practice point of view, teaching us how to protect your online presence. Dr. Sloan, welcome.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. First and foremost, thank you to Dr. Marlena. Marlena, it was so wonderful speaking with you, and she gave me a great topic tonight on saving lives, limbs, and your identity. And so many times, I think we've already talked about social media, and so it's the other things that we don't talk about, being online and trying to protect ourselves when we think we're being really smart. So that's what we're going to discuss tonight. Some of the things about your identity, what your actual digital card looks like, what are the security things that are out there, and what the future looks like for this. So let's get started tonight. Shout out to my previous resident, Selena Poon. You've done a great job, and I really look forward to seeing you guys in the next academy. I mean, I hate that we're not doing this live. So it goes to prove virtual. Virtual is very important, as you can tell. Physical identity, as we know it, is sort of out the window. We are dealing with 3 different generations now. We're dealing with the baby boomers. We're dealing with Gen X, that's me, and a millennial crowd that are new residents that are out there in practice now. And so with that, the virtual versus physical, a lot of us forget that, you know, we think we're sort of immune to it or we don't have time. So the question is I have for you guys tonight is, have you Googled yourself? I want you guys to become your own stalker. And so it seems comical, you know, it's like, but when was the last time you Googled yourself? And not just your immediate name, but your, you know, married name, perhaps it's a divorce name. Maybe there's another business that you run. You want to Google anything and everything that has your identity to it, because the physical identity on paper is one thing. Digital identity is a whole new ballgame that we are not educated and are privy to. And so my disclaimer is the rules of medicine. I call it rule number 24. It is basically business, and this is business. You better know your own self. So become your own stalker, what's out there. And reason being, search engine optimization, something that puts people at higher rankings, will basically decide what is at the forefront of your Google. And so with that, you don't control that. You are not bigger than Google, I promise you. And so therefore, if Google can put things like health grades and vitals and these other companies that are out there, they're paying big money to have their name out front and advertise, those are the things that are going to come up first. And your name is in there as a digital identity that we'll even discuss in a little bit how it got there, and you have no control over it. Social media, that's what we're talking about tonight. It's already been discussed a lot. The question is, you know, with 3.5 million people on social media every day and at 3 hours a piece, and most of us at doing 8 different types of social media, the question is, what are you on? What are you connecting yourself to? Myself, I'm on so many apps, I literally have lost count. You know, some of the major ones you want to be on are definitely Facebook, because of the way that they actually advertise. Your business account versus a personal account. You want to be on Instagram, Twitter, more conversational. You want to be on LinkedIn, Doximity. Some of the other things that are now coming up are these other things that you see in front of you that are really important. But like for me, I'm a mom of 3. And so PMG on Facebook is a chat group that I love being, Physician Mom Group, because it's a place where we can let our hair down, no pun intended, and get real, but at the same time, get information. You are still vulnerable because you don't own that information. So again, your digital identity is exposed if you are connecting through all these platforms. And every time you connect, and I can bet money on it, you guys all have the same login. And so one of the things we'll talk about soon also are some of the things we control. The other thing that with our digital identity that really has put us very, very vulnerable is databases. And so when the internet really started, 86, 87, and then the ICANN basically is sort of the governing body that controlled the data that went in, they siloed a lot of information. So medical professionals went into one, doctors, residents, nurses, whoever. And these silos or this funneled information was not controlled by the doctors. And so with these databases, what happens is it's not corrected, or if it is corrected, it takes time. There's still a digital footprint that somebody can pull up old data on you. And so therefore you don't control that. You can't change it. And if you do, it takes a lot. One of our main things right now is learning how to opt out of some of these databases. You can go in and strategically try to get out of some of their databases. However, they can always go back in and advertise and do it again. What this discovery for opting out, removing some of this negative reputation, you know, you didn't ask for this, but you got it. How do you remove some of that content? And we'll talk about some of that. I think we've already discussed some of it as well. But the issue is it takes a lot. And because we don't control our own identity, we don't go and check our identity, how can we know and or try to protect our identity? And so a lot of this is really looking, seeing what's out there, what's being said about you. Next, we'll talk about more the privacy and cookies. So privacy policies, as you guys saw, really does stink. A lot of people don't understand privacy policies. It's basically information about what they're going to collect when you come onto their website. Cookies are basically smaller bits of information about you specifically searching on their website, what they're going to continue to maintain while you're on their website, and then when your computer comes back. So you can either do things to protect your identity, not log in, or come in under a pseudonym, and or log in as a dark login. You see these things going called incognito on Google now. These are things that will not allow the cookies to be monitored, or you go in and you delete cookies every night or whenever you're on your website. And it's not just the initial software that you're looking at. You actually have to do some backdoor searching. So you do have to be a little bit tech savvy to do all that. And I would definitely advise you to possibly clear that every now and then, as well as Google yourself at least twice a year, maybe more. Next, your business card. All of us have business cards. We carry business cards because it's a form of networking, if you will. And so is being online now. Your new business card has become your website. So there's basically your personal website and your business, your professional website. Those websites are providing general information about who you are, about yourself, the services you provide, and products. And the reason I say this is because a lot of us do a lot of things, but we overlap, and we've got to be more careful about that. Your professional identity is not your personal identity. A lot of times your domain name, your host, how you log in, the companies you're using, that kind of stuff, you're using the same identity, the same digital footprint, as well as the login passwords on your personal accounts as you are your professional accounts. Stop, because this is how your identity gets stolen and or hacked and or whatever that's going to harm you in the future. A lot of us are more than just medicine. We are entrepreneurs, myself included. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have multiple businesses. I can't afford my professional business as a surgeon to go down and be tampered with, because it's going to eventually somehow affect my other businesses, my nonprofits. We're moms. People are watching us on a professional level as well as a personal level. My social media is actually open to anybody and everyone that's out there, because we have a large church in North Houston, here in Texas. My members want to know who we are, what we're doing. We did a live stream with our kids last night to over 10,000 people. And so therefore, my life really isn't my own. So therefore, I do have to be careful what I put out there. But at the same time, people want to know that side. So I mix and mingle both on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. But then I have other businesses, again, nonprofits, private interests that I don't want anybody else to know about. I call it the NODB. It's none of their damn business. So what you do, if the identity is out there and you're sharing it and you're not being protective of your check-in, your logins, and going back into monitoring it, I promise you it's going to be breached. Case in point, I have a nonprofit called Motivating and Empowering Women. In October, we have a secondary authentication code, which we'll talk about as well. The secondary authentication code means that as soon as someone logs in and tries to get into that account, they will text me or email me and my secretary or my assistant. And so she calls me and she can't get me, but she realizes someone's trying to hack our account from like the Philippines. Locked down the account, but within less than 30 minutes, they had taken everything off that website, had put up some horrible things, as well as had our bank information and some other stuff. And it was all because I had not utilized some of the protective things on GoDaddy. That going through some of the websites, you can actually protect yourself, specifically software that they have, the links that they have. There's other things that they can make sure, like the secondary authentication, that will protect you and warn you when people are trying to get in. It cost us $750 on a Sunday afternoon to basically go back and retrieve our account and protect it for the next 2 years. Was it worth it? Yes. But was it an expensive lesson? You better believe it. So don't be that lesson. The other side is your website, that is your professional website. Let me be very clear. They own you. I don't care if you are in private practice, if you are in a collaboration with some hospital, if you have a contract as somewhat of a hospitalist or a group or whatever else, you do not own yourself. One, because your identity is already out there on the web, but also because there's things like intellectual property, the image and likeness. If you are working with a large hospital and you are somehow getting financial benefits from them, they own your image and likeness. So that means they can put any picture out, they can put any verbiage out that they want of your image and likeness, and you don't control that. So make sure those are some of the things that you learn in contracts that you want to make sure that you control. What can you say? And I think we talked about this earlier too. What you can't say, and the things that you want to really make sure of is like, where can you go to do presentations? Or is it okay for you to come to the Ruth Jackson Orthopedic Society to do a presentation? If they own you, hopefully so, but you never know if there's someplace else you want to go to present and they say no. And you have no rights at this point because they basically own you. Also, you want to know what that non-disclosure is. That non-disclosure is how long, or do not compete, I should say. The non-disclosure is what they can say about you, what you can say about them. Can you use their logo, their branding as well? Just because you work for a company doesn't mean that you can utilize that on your personal side. So there's a lot of other things that go along with your identity that you may or may not control. All right. Next, let's talk about social media. So if you're not already on social media, we talked about this. The average American is in 8 different social media platforms. The big ones, Facebook, because it can reach so many and they are more open with their privacy now. Instagram is huge for a millennial crowd. TikTok is, like she said, up and coming. Twitter is probably more of the Gen X and some baby boomers, as your president has proven it to be very popular. LinkedIn is popular for medical professionals, and then YouTube is definitely for content sharing and showing yourself to be the authority in whatever field you're in. Next, we'll talk about security. So this is a key slide to take home. How do you protect yourself in this digital identity, digital theft type of environment? Now, you want to be wary of going to places with free Wi-Fi. My daughters, we were recently in Mexico and coming back, started getting some really crazy, people saying their account had been hacked and whatnot. It was because we used the Wi-Fi at the airport, and so you have to be very careful who can get in if it's not a VPN, a protected network, that kind of thing. We want to make sure that if you trust it, or if not, use the incognito type of things when you're searching. Use strong, unique passwords online accounts. I don't care if you change it by one letter. So it's, whatever for Instagram and it's IG, and it's whatever for Facebook and it's FB, and it's whatever, and you put your, anniversary of your mother and father at the beginning date or whatever. Just change each account so each one is different, because if they can hack one, they can hack all of them. Have different types of accounts. Again, for me, being transparent across multiple platforms, I have to have one identity, because it's branding for my book, for my church, that kind of thing, as well as an orthopedic surgeon. Hashtag I am orthodoc on all platforms. And that is one thing that people don't do, because I'm not going to show you inappropriate swimsuit pictures of myself, if that's not who I want, if that's not what I want you to see. However, if I show you the beach and we're hanging out and you see my blue toenail polish, I don't mind if my church people see that, if ortho people see that, or regular people in the world see that. So again, what I would present professionally and or not goes a long way, because if not, then hide that account. No one needs to have that identity of who you are on that account. Don't let it be your name, some crazy name or character or whatever else that you want it to be, but let it be different. Use security tools that are installed on websites. A lot of times, if you're doing your own personal websites, they are already there. The SSLs, the authentication, Norton, those kind of things that are already validated and you can trust on websites like a GoDaddy, like building sites, like oh my God, there's thousands of them out there. But use their tools. You're going to pay a little bit more, but it will protect you in the long run. Again, use a 2-factor authentication. Either it's going to be through your phone number, they're going to email you. Recently, I just had one with Barclays. They actually call you before you can actually log in. And then the other thing that's now is the generated QR code or serial of like 9 numbers to authenticate that it's you. And so like Facebook and Microsoft and even Google are now coming out with this code generator. So it's a separate app, but you go into that app as soon as you click to say, authenticated as me, it generates a code and it's only good for a couple of minutes. so it's another way that people cannot hack your accounts. And then don't forget to terminate old accounts. I had names as a, when I was single, or medical school, or different times, or different organizations, or whatever else, and those accounts are still open, and anybody can use that as identification. So make sure you want to go in and close those old accounts. And then don't fall prey to clickbait. I'm working with a government facility right now, and every 3 months they allow you have to go in and do this updated security on how not to click on, fake bait of, oh, your identity has been stolen, click here to reclaim, or this is a great ad, or whatever. Make sure, scroll down to the bottom, or look at who sent the email. Does it have a valid looking account? And when in doubt, don't, okay? Because it can be a lot of malware onto your software. And then the other thing that is out there is called protect your social media privacy. You actually do have social media privacy. You can go in and unclick all the advertisement that they want to link to you by being linked to that account. Facebook has multiple screens that you have to do to get to it, but it can be done. And Instagram has it as well, which is owned by Facebook. And Twitter's is a little bit more easy to go in and let them not follow your social media. So therefore you don't get the advertisement, all right? But also they don't follow what you're doing and what you're looking at, so they can send those advertisements to you directly. Again, those are cookies. And then limit your sharing on social media. I am a concealed handgun license carrier in Texas for multiple reasons. However, one of the guys that was actually teaching us was a Marine, and he basically says every time you guys post something, it lets people know exactly where you are. So I think you said earlier, make sure that you post it later, or you change the, maybe it's a right hand or a left hand or whatever else. Same thing. We didn't post while we were in Mexico. We waited till we were back in town, because if we start posting and people saw it, then it was like, oh, they're actually out of town, so someone can rob your house, or that kind of stuff. Don't put things that are really sensitive to your front of your house, and it's a picture but it has your street address, stuff. People are stalkers, and they will find stuff out and they will use it for good or bad. And usually I say there's not so much good in the world when it comes to identity theft, okay? Some other things to fix it. So how do these people actually utilize your information, your data that has been siloed from the beginning? Every time you went from medical school and you put in on the application, and your social security number and your phone number and your email, every time you put that stuff in, it's siloed into information on the website. And this goes under, health grades, vitals, all of these different accounts where they can evaluate you as a physician or a person and say some really derogatory things. It's under the Communication Decency Act. And this basically says we are not responsible for screening, policing, or editing or monitoring this site. So they basically have no responsibility to what people say. And this is how they can keep this stuff. This is how you can try to go in for months, if not years, to get things removed that may be derogatory, untrue, and cannot. So what can you do? One, you have to usually go in and actually contact them directly. And that is usually a form, and good luck with that, because it took a friend of mine 6 months just to get them to respond to the form. She sent multiple times. The other thing is to have positive review generation. And this is where you actually ask your patients to go in and do more positive reviews, patients that you have good rapport with, patients that like you and that don't mind vouching for you, and that will prove to be an actual person and a valid account. That will actually increase those numbers on the search engine optimization. Therefore, they'll be more visible. And then you do something called search engine suppression, which basically pushes all the bad things to the bottom. Page 3, page 4 of Google, where most people don't go. Page 1 is where you want the best things that can be said about you and anything to do with your identity. And then worst case scenario, if it comes to the point where you think there has been, they have defamed your name, you probably want to pursue litigation. And again, that comes at a cost, time, energy, and money. So again, protecting your identity, knowing what people are saying, you have to screen it. So this is sort of summary picture that basically social media limits your screen, your sharing, two-step authentication, terminate old accounts, change passwords often is another good one. And then Passwords strong. Make sure you have different accounts for your professional and personal. Use the website tools, and then be careful where you're using Wi-Fi and that kind of thing. So some of the extra things I wanted to share that you guys may or may not have known about are the extra things that are out there for cybersecurity. So a lot of us have heard of LifeLock. And we were traveling in Israel, and I got a notification that my social security number had been used to open an account in South Dakota. So LifeLock helped protect me, but by calling one phone call, they just so happened that the EIN number of my business account was the same as someone else's social security number. It just happened to be a coincidence, but it was an alert that I was quickly able to call and shut it down, or at least know that it wasn't, valid. Some of the other companies that you see here, Identity Guard, are not just for your credit or your ranking. They also protect things like your identity if it's stolen, and defamation as well. Very costly. Things like Xander insurance, if you actually lose time, cost of litigation, that kind of stuff. These are other ways and companies that can do this for you. But again, costs a lot of money. So if you can prevent it and monitor it, then that's the best way to go, instead of having to worry about fixing it later on. Okay. So this is a big one. So I call it What in the Web, and it's a busy slide, but what I want you to see is over to the right here is basically what you know as the web. It's called the surface web. That is the Google. That is where Yahoo is, and CNN, and all the things that we probably look at daily. What we don't know about a lot is called the deep web. The deep web is where the academic data, that's where most of our information is as medical doctors. That's where your medical records are for your patients and yourself. That's where all your financial records, everything from a mortgaged home to credit cards to anything at debt that you may have, legal documents from houses to divorces and marriages, scientific reports. This is where a lot of the research is stored. And then any type of government, anything. These are the areas where they keep it, the deep web. You can't just go looking for this thing and get into it. You have to have a little bit more expertise, and or there's a little bit more screening, and or a lot more safety or locks to get to these things. Now, the worst thing is called the dark web. And a lot of you guys have probably heard, oh my God, the dark web, and what is it, and whatever else. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's where the bad stuff is. It's where the bad people are. It's where the things that we can't not even imagine on our worst day, what is going on there. But what I want you to understand is, we as orthopedic surgeons and physicians, the dark web services, we are very vulnerable to at least 6 of the channels of what they do. Pharmaceuticals, because they will sell and use drugs and use different means to get those. And sometimes that may be your DEA number and you don't even know it. Financial and fraud sites, they will use your name or credentials, maybe from medical school, it may be from a house that you bought 20 years ago and you forgot about, credentials. Drugs, again, goes back to some of the pharmaceuticals. Sometimes this is not so much legal drugs, it's illegal drugs, but using fake documents and services, from passports to licenses to whatever else, medical documents, medical records, that kind of stuff. And then that gets people everything from cards that they can use and get in other places. So there literally can be another you, 2 or 3 of you in various areas of the world, and on the dark web, you would never know it. So how do you protect yourself from that? Again, talk to you guys about some of the things that would actually monitor that, and some of those things, not LifeLock, but some of the other ones are specifically to dark web and deep web. And if you are just starting out in medical practice, in orthopedics or in medicine, it may not be right now, but if you're like myself, 10, 20 years in, it's definitely probably worth at least having a once-time scan at some point, just to make sure what is out there about you on the dark web. All right. So, final point, let's talk about the future of your identity. And this is a little bit more complex, so stick with me. I'm almost done. Sovereignty on the internet is about your identity and you controlling it. Remember, I talked about the fact that you didn't own your identity anymore. So in the future, I believe in a bell curve, and we've all heard about this whole flattening the curve right now with coronavirus. Flattening the curve basically means everything has a period where things adjust and then they get better and they sort of level out, right? So I think the web is the same way. We started really strong in the first 30 years or so, all this information. We are information overload, and everybody knows everything, every time, all about you. There's nothing to hide. And I think it's going to slowly but surely over the next 10 to 20 years circle back where you now are going to be more in control of your identity and the information that's out there. And this is called self-sovereignty, the identity. And what it is, and the best way I can explain this, is if you guys have heard of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is a technology. It's a technology that is being utilized on the internet. The technology basically is to take away the siloed information about you. So everything that you've ever done, from every license you've applied for every credit card to, every paper or anything that has a link to you with your name, social security number, date of birth, emails, or anything else, becomes decentralized. Not one party or person or entity can control that. Currently, the internet is basically based off of a hierarchy, and that hierarchy is controlled by higher powers that we could never compete with and or have the money to compete with. Using Bitcoin type of technology called blockchain, the idea is to do something called decentralization. So no longer in a siloed entity, it becomes multiple entities. And those entities are then placed in a encrypted database. The encryption basically comes all of the information about you, my social security number, my ID, my licenses, become encrypted where, randomly algorithm, no one can read. And each one of these pieces of information gets stored in different places. And the only person that has a key to that would be you. So this is called decentralization, autonomization, organizations. And so there's several of them already out there. This is already happening. And medicine right now is eventually going to get there, but it can be monetized. So I think it's definitely going to get there. So the idea again is that you have this certificate here that you own, and no longer these entities, but it becomes you yourself, and you can actually sell those if they want the information. So if Health Grades, who is selling advertisement on their website because they have the free information that's out there about you, and you have no right to say you should not use my name or my medical record number or anything else, medical license number on your website, you don't have that control. But with blockchain technology and this decentralization information, you now control it. And so if Health Grades wants to use your name, they are going to have to pay you to use their name. And so some people say, oh, but then you're hiding something, or we don't want to do that because then patients won't find you. No, trust me, because the idea would be each governing body now becomes, in the United States, in China, in Australia, all these different places, we all agree to a mutual community of medical professionals or doctors per se. And we decide this smart contract is what they call it, which is saying the values we will accept under this blockchain. What values go in, which is our data of who we are, our medical licenses, any information from test scores to whatever is locked down by us. And therefore, if they want to deal with that, then they come to the DAO of doctors, and then it has to be released. But we all agree on what that is. So if you want to think about it as a very smart union, which is what we've been saying doctors should do for a long time to get some power back, right? So this is the future. This is where we're going. And it's a hard concept to grasp, but the idea that the decentralization autonomous organization already exists is called Doctors of DAO. This is one, and there's another one called HPEC, Health Professionals Empowered Organization or Community, and there's others that will evolve. Nonetheless, they're all going to reside on the same type of platform and all have the same power. There is no hierarchy anymore. So again, it's a lot. It's a very hard concept, but what I really want you to understand is that identity, digital identity, is not your own right now. So therefore, what we used to have, the card, the badge, even that's digitized, we're using fingerprints now, facial recognition on your Apple phones and computers. And so therefore, we've asked for it, but to be functional in this digital society, you have to be part of it. And so every time you enter your name, every time you enter your height, your weight, your net worth, your social security, your medical history, it's not owned by you, but you expect it to be private. So if you're more aware, if you learn how to monitor, stay educated, really read up on your identity and cyber technology and cybersecurity. This is going to help us in the future. So I look forward to meeting you guys next year, hopefully, and we're going to beat this damn coronavirus. I hate this thing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sloan. That was fantastic. These were priceless pearls and tools to help protect ourselves in ways I didn't even know existed. Thank you so much for your time. We are so grateful to have these three eloquent presenters join us tonight and share these fantastic insights into the social media world around us and how we can succeed within it. Now we'll move on to our final section of question and answers. And so I don't see any question and answers placed into the queue as of now. Please feel free to type any in. Until then, Dr. Sharpe, I'd like to direct the first question to you. Can you elaborate a little bit on your hashtag Mayo Grit program and how social media is helping you to propel it?
Mayo Grit is a Women in Medicine conference that was started by Dr. Susie Moschler and Anjali Bagra. And it is a women in leadership conference that provides opportunities for women to network, collaborate, and learn leadership qualities, and they bring in amazing speakers every year. This 2020 will be the third year of the conference, and they bring in speakers both within the Mayo enterprise as well as outside of Mayo to discuss many different aspects that women encounter, whether it is work-life balance, integration. There's always some social media discussions as well. We have had our CEO speak to us last year about kind of a he for she, how we can engage leadership, male leaders to be our advocates. It's 3 days of just amazingness. And social media, we are actually working on a manuscript right now to describe how we've been able to implement social media to really expand our footprint and to be able to reach people outside of just the Mayo walls and be able to get the word out about the amazing things that happen at Mayo Grit, and then also the connections and collaborations that people that occur at the Grit conference that then continue on past the conference.
Fantastic and inspiring. Thank you. Hopefully that social media will continue to expand the reach of Mayo Grit and other programs. Dr. Payares, do you find that there's certain social media platforms that are easier to mitigate negative reviews than others?
Well, I mean, I think it depends. So, places like, health rates and things like that, you may have to, approach them directly and they may take a little bit longer. So I think those that are a little bit harder to change, which is why if you have to go through those places, it's harder to take them out. So it's easier for me, I feel like, just addressing it with the patient directly. I use Facebook, but I have more of a personal, a personal profile there. I do have the Doximity and LinkedIn, and I haven't had any really review issues there. I'm still learning to navigate through Twitter and Instagram, but you don't get those are the sort of platforms for social media in general. But the other websites like Health Rates and U.S. News and World Report, it's very difficult to change those there or to take those reviews out of there. So most of the time, probably the less complicated area or the faster route is just really talking to the patient directly and getting them to remove it themselves. It can become quite a nightmare.
Yeah, going to the source it sounds like the wisest guidance for sure. Thank you so much for that. And our final question will be for Dr. Sloan, and due to time, we'll close out from here. But for our members and listeners who are not, as a surgeon in private practice, how do you manage your time to maximize social media and still manage your practice? And furthermore, how do you do all of that and write a book, develop and run multiple nonprofits? Do you have a protected admin day? How do you do that?
You need more people in your tribe. I don't mind paying to get help. And so a lot of times we forget you can get help. You know, we've gone through this whole residency and practice, and, you know, we think we're super women. We are super women, but the smart thing is we're smart women too. And that whole point is, you know, buy online and let someone else pick up the groceries, order dinner and food for the week, you know, and let someone deliver it. I have a nanny, and I have two nannies, and I have someone that helps with driving, pick up, share, you know, car patrol with the parents. Figure it out with assistance. You can't do it all, but you can have it all, which I talk about at another time, because scheduling is the main priority. Like, get help, put more people in your tribe to assist you.
That is fantastic advice. As a fellow currently and about to enter a career, that I will definitely keep that in close to heart as I continue to try and balance everything ahead. So thank you. Thank you everyone for your time tonight. We definitely would have preferred to do this in person in sunny Orlando, but we have truly enjoyed our evening together. Hope you all have been able to get some insights, some pearls, some techniques and tips on how to manage the social media world around us and incorporate it into your practice, as well as research activities and entrepreneurial activities, as well as mentoring. We thoroughly appreciate your membership, and we look forward to working with everyone more in the future. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you so much.